Hello. Oh, that summoned the puppy. I knew as I was saying it, I was like, this is gonna summon the pup. Hello. Hello. Do you like it when I say hello like that? that's that's very cute. Hello. Okay, Ben. I've got some treats from you, but you have to chew them. Aww. I, I'm sorry. It, my hello summoned the puppy, which is what I was laughing at. You have to chew. Okay? That wasn't a chew. That was a gulp. What's where did this come from? Why did you decide to stop chewing? Ben, maybe that's why you were feeling sick today. Maybe it's when he like stands up on my leg. Maybe if I give it to him at ground level. Sit. Chew. Okay, he chewed that one at least twice. Ugh. Stressing me out, puppy. Stressing me out makes me not want to give you treats. You have to chew so I give you treats. Go get it. He definitely chewed that one. So I guess I don't give him treats up here anymore. Call of Duty ad. I don't want that here. I don't endorse that game. No. You don't chew when you're up here. Go get. The mighty hunter stalks his prey. How are the sharkies? I'll save the other one for later. I saw him. Oh, there he is. VIP. Very important puppy. How are you doing this fine Friday evening? It was actually a nice day today. Took the pup for a walk earlier and I had my coat on, and partway through the walk I was like, I shouldn't have worn a coat. I am getting too warm. It was apparently 13 degrees, but it felt warmer than that to me. Maybe I'm just already getting used to the cold. Less tired than yesterday. Oh yeah, I saw your post about staying up past midnight making costumes. I have no idea what I'm going to wear on Halloween. We're going to do some last minute decorating on the Monday, on the 31st, because we're kind of just leaving our house as neutral as possible for anyone that might come view the place. The showing today, it sounded like went quite well. The couple that came and looked at the place really liked it, and it sounded like it would be the two of them plus their mother. And so their mother was not here, so they were going to wait to talk to her before making any decisions. But it sounded like it went very well. So that's good. Because otherwise, it's been very slow lately. So I really hope that they like this place enough to buy it. Hi. Are you waiting for this last treat? You really want it. If you like them so much, why do you just swallow them whole? That can't be fun. Okay, go get it. Crotch, crotch, crotch. And it is our roommate's birthday today. Happy birthday! So we're gonna have ramen for dinner after the stream. I'm actually going to try a laksa ramen because I really like laksa. And there's a great place in Steveston. Um, if you are ever in Steveston and would like some really good Malaysian and Singaporean food, it's called Curry House, and it's right on the water. Well, I mean, it's not on the water because there are one or two places that are actually on the water, but it is restaurant and then water. um, and yeah, um, I mean, I pretty much just get the laksa every time I go there, and it's great. Um, which we haven't been for a while. I'd like to go. Um, but Farmhouse has gotten some other dishes there that have looked very good as well. And they've got, like, I think a Malaysian iced coffee that was very interesting looking. Has only traveled to Steveston by boat. Well, I've only traveled to Steveston by car along the Steveston Highway. Pup's just sitting right here going. You want more treats? Is that it? I'm sorry your bed's not out. It got put away for the showing. Oh, and the couple that came to view the place has a dog as well, apparently. And also an electric car, which is nice because we have an electric car charger installed, so, you know, more incentive for them to want to buy the place. Yeah, there's some good food in Steveston. For such a small little, like, community, it's got a good variety of shopping and food and things. Really good sushi there. Really good fish and chips. And then, yeah, really good Malaysian food. There's like a steakhouse or something. There's a lot of food there. There was, when we lived there, just like a 5-minute walk from our apartment, like probably less than that, honestly, if you were walking briskly, there was this great Mexican place. And then it changed owners, and the new owners kind of tried to make it fancier, and I feel like that made it worse. And then they like closed for renovations, and I honestly don't know if they ever opened again after that. They might have, but they were closed for a long time. Yeah, that sounds familiar. They might have had a fire and decided to renovate after that. But yeah, it was a bummer when the new management came in, and the food just, I don't know, they tried to get really like classy, and like I don't know if maybe their chef wasn't as, I don't know. Before that, it was like massive portions of just good food, and then afterwards it was like smaller portions of fancy food, and I don't always want fancy food. I feel like, especially with like Mexican food, if you try to make it too fancy, it tastes worse to me. Is that weird? Yeah, I prefer it that way. Not to mention their prices hiked up too. Cheese, don't forget the cheese. There it is. Well, at least it's best when it tastes like someone's grandma made it. I'm making myself hungry. I'm not going to be able to eat till after the stream. Oh, I forgot to get myself a drink. I will be right back. I gotta get a drink. Just a sec. I'm coming. I'm coming back. I'm back. Oh yeah, what was that called? Like 10 something. Let's see. It was called. That's not any of these. Tenon? Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that was. I decided when we ordered from there to splurge a little, and I got like a barbecue platter, which was like $32. So not like for a barbecue restaurant, not the most expensive. But you know, not like normally I would get something that's like $23 or less. So it was like $32, I think, something like that. But it was so much food. It was just, it was like, and like a big variety of different stuff, and it was very good. Hi, what? You've had so many snacks. He wants more. Yeah, that was pretty tasty. But also just like too much meat. I feel like I would order that again and also order like a big salad or something and break those two meals up together over like four meals. Yeah. How did I just get to just talking about food? Whatever. So how many do you get trick or treaters where you live right now, Sharkies? We typically get like 40 to 45 kids total. Everything comes back to food, yeah. Um, on Halloween. I mean, the last couple of Halloweens have both been weekendish, right? And Monday's not the worst day for Halloween, but it's also definitely like, you know, not perfect either. Let's see, 2022. Let's say 2021, because last year it was on Sunday. And then the year before that, it was on Saturday. Yeah, so the past 2 years, it was weekend. You don't get many. Yeah, that's fair. We don't get as many as I would expect because we live in like a strata, and just like next to our strata is an elementary school. So there's lots of like trick or treating age kids that live around here. Um, but we don't get very many of them, like only like, yeah, 40, 45, even on like the weekends, actually show up, which seems really weird. I don't know why that is, because like if I lived around here when I was a kid, I'd be like, a strata is a lot of doors very densely together, so that's prime Halloween real estate right there, right? You wanna make as good time as possible when you're trick or treating. You got to plan that strategically. That's how I viewed it when I was that age. It was like You know, forget the specialty Halloween basket. You grab a pillowcase. Um, you you listen closely on the street to which houses are getting talked about for, you know, maybe giving out like full chocolate bars. There was one house near where I lived that was like pretty reliable for giving out full chocolate bars. And then you hit there, and then you go like to the densest populated, you know, neighborhood you can, and go door to door as fast as possible. Oh, that's what's going on there. Destination neighborhoods. Oh, I see. For the decorations. Well, I mean, the thing with that is if they're decorating, like if they're going all out for their decorating, then they're probably going to give out good treats too. But that feels, I don't know. I also feel a little strange about like straying too far from where I live. As like when I was a kid, I never actually really left my neighborhood. It was just, you know, knowing where to go inside my neighborhood. Malls is a weird concept to me. That's something that I have heard more and more of over recent years, but like I just would have never even thought of it as a kid. Yeah, that's a solid reason to go elsewhere. When I say like I stuck to my neighborhood, though, I just meant like within walking distance, like not necessarily on my street. You know, I would go down and around to like, you know, up and down the streets and things like that. But also, I lived in a pretty, like, I grew up in Cultus Lake, so it was all residential, like, around where I lived, and, like, very little, you know, commercial or anything else around where I was. I mean, you are, yes, on the one hand, but also if they're going that all out, hopefully they don't mind that much. Maybe they enjoy it. Yeah, your parents get absurd amounts of kids. They like they run out of candy, they go and get more, and then eventually they just turn off their lights because it's too much. You did them all once, but it sucked. Oh, that's stressful. They plan for like 400 and then stop. Yeah, which it's unfortunate the like running out of candy and just like calling it. But I mean, it's also like exhausting dealing with that many kids, which is pretty bonkers because I remember like we did a few Halloween parties, you know, like a decade ago at your parents' place, and I feel like yeah, there were lots of kids, but not nearly that many. There was no 300. So that's really like gone up. that's that's cute. Needs must. You think there was over 200 when we were there? All right. I didn't think it was that many, but we also kind of broke up the duty of going to the door between a larger group of people when we did that. It does feel a little weird not having the house decorated on like when Halloween is like 3 days away or whatever. So, do the Sharkies have anything they're willing to share about what your costumes are going to be, or do we have to wait for pictures? You put out candy. That's trusting. I don't know. The honor system. People don't always behave honorably on Halloween. I feel like our friend Erica, her mom, I feel like, has had some bad experiences with putting out candy on Halloween, from what I remember. Yeah, I think 45 is the highest we've had here. I was saying between 40 to 45, usually. But I feel like it's been pretty consistently between like 40 to 45. Right? Yes, you mentioned that. Rest of your characters from Homestar Runner. I Homestar Runner is one of those things that I would love to go back and just watch a bunch of the emails again at some point. Emails. But also it feels like there's just that's such a commitment to like a time sink. Well, yeah, but that's because you don't give one candy per kid. That's no, no. Those are the bad houses that give one candy per kid. No offense, anyone. Also, we want leftovers. Oh yeah, it's weird how Flash has just died. How they were just like, you know what? It's not secure anymore. Nobody uses it. We're removing support. No more Flash. It doesn't exist anymore. I wonder how much of the internet has been lost due to that and other formats losing support. I mean, there's always ways to go back and access them, but if you're willing to like put in work. That's a little sad though. Speed mails. The system is down. Wow. That's funny. Well, we've got what, like 100 pages to go? Less than, it looks like. We're on page 295. No, 294. We're at the beginning of 294. Out of 380-ish. So, last time on Men at Arms, Carrot and the militia went and confronted the crowds outside the Day Watch, conscripted some of the crowds outside the Day Watch. Actually, before that, Angua went into the Assassin's Guild as a dog. And overheard some conversation between Dr. Cruces and Dr. Whiteface, as well as finding out the name of Edward Deeth. Then after that, Carrot went and did etc. with the crowds outside the Day Watch and knocked Captain Quirk on his butt, as well as unconscious, relieving him of command, and ordered Coalface the Troll to be unchained. That hasn't happened just yet, as far as we have found out. And then Gaspode and Angua got accosted by the Dogs Guild, because even the dogs have a guild in Ankh-Morpork. And apparently all of the members are those that have been bad dogs. And we met Big Fido, who is a poodle, afflicted with madness. And that's where we're at. I feel like we didn't really actually read that much on Wednesday. So why don't we make up for that and read a little more just now. Ready? Page 294. He had been a normal dog. He'd begged and rolled over and heeled and fetched. Every night he'd been taken for a walk. There was no flash of light when it happened. He'd just been lying in his basket one night, and he'd thought about his name, which was Fido, and the name on the basket, which was Fido. And he thought about his blanket with Fido on it, and his bowl with Fido on it, and above all he brooded on the collar with Fido on it. And something, somewhere, deep in his brain, had gone click, and he'd eaten his blanket, savaged his owner, and dived out through the kitchen window. In the street outside, a Labrador 4 times the size of Fido had sniggered at the collar, and 30 seconds later had fled, whimpering. That had just been the start. The dog hierarchy was a simple matter. Fido had simply asked around, generally in a muffled voice because he had someone's leg in his jaws, until he located the leader of the largest gang of feral dogs in the city. People, that is, dogs, still talked about the fight between Fido and Barking Mad Arthur, a Rottweiler with one eye and a very bad temper. But most animals don't fight to the death, only to the defeat. And Fido was impossible to defeat. He was simply a very small, fast, killing streak with a collar. He'd hung on to bits of Barking Mad Arthur until Barking Mad Arthur had given in, and then, to his amazement, Fido had killed him. There was something inexplicably determined about the dog. You could have sandblasted him for 5 minutes, and what was left still wouldn't have given up, and you'd better not turn your back on it. Because Big Fido had a dream. So, to be clear, the first time that Big Fido was described, there was a small and rather dainty white poodle that still just about had the overgrown remains of its poodle cut. Blah, blah, blah. And then, yeah. So, we're not talking a large standard poodle. We're talking about a fairly small poodle, I suppose. What are they called? I don't want to say teacup poodle. That's not right. Toy poodle. Yeah, I think Big Fido is a toy poodle. That's at least the impression I'm kind of getting. "Is there a problem?" said Carrot. "That troll insulted that dwarf," said Strong in the Arm, the dwarf. "I heard Acting Constable Detritus give an order to Lance Constable Hrolf Pyjama," said Carrot. "What about it?" "He's a troll." "Well?" "He insulted a dwarf." "Actually, it's a technical military term," said Sergeant Colin. "That damn troll just happened to save my life today," shouted Cuddy. "What for?" "What for? 'Cause it was my life, that's what for. I happen to be very attached to it. I didn't mean. You just shut up, Abba Strong in the Arm. What do you know about anything, you civilian? Why are you so stupid? Arr! I'm too short for this shit. A shadow loomed in the doorway. Coalface was a basically horizontal shape, a dark mass of fracture lines and sheer surfaces. His eyes gleamed red and suspicious. "Now you're letting it go," moaned a dwarf. "This is because we have no reason to keep him locked up," said Carrot. "Whoever killed Mr. Hammerhawk was small enough to get through a dwarf's doorway. A troll his size couldn't manage that." "But everyone knows he's a bad troll," shouted Strong in the Arm. "I never done nothing," said Coalface. "You can't turn him loose now, sir," hissed Colin. "They'll set on him." "I never done nothing." "Good point, Sergeant. Acting Constable Detritus." "Sir." "Volunteer him." "I never done nothing." "You can't do that," shouted the dwarf. "Ain't gonna be in no watch," growled Coalface. Carrot leaned towards him. "There's 100 dwarfs over there, with great big axes," he whispered. Coalface blinked. "I'll join." "Swear him in, Acting Constable." "Permission to enroll another dwarf, sir? To maintain parity?" "Go ahead, Acting Constable Cuddy." Carrot removed his helmet and wiped his forehead. "I think that's about it, then," he suggested. The crowd stared at him. He smiled brightly. "No one has to stay here unless they want to," he said. "I never done nothing." "Yes, but look," said Strong in the Arm. "If he didn't kill old Hammerhawk, who did?" "I never done nothing." "Our inquiries are proceeding." "You don't know." "But I'm finding out." "Oh, yes? And when, pray, will you know?" "Tomorrow." The dwarf hesitated. "All right, then," he said, with extreme reluctance. "Tomorrow. But it had better be tomorrow." "All right," said Carrot. The crowd dispersed, or at least spread out a bit. Trolls, dwarfs, and humans alike. An Ankh-Morpork citizen is never keen on moving on if there's still some theater left. Acting Constable Detritus, his chest so swollen with pride and pomposity that his knuckles barely touched the ground, reviewed his troops. "You listen up, you horrible trolls!" He paused, while the next thoughts shuffled into position. "You listen up good right now. You in the watch, boy. It a job with opportunity," said Detritus. "I only been doing it 10 minutes, and already I get promoted. Also, got education and training for a good job in Civilian Street." "This your club with a nail in it. You will eat it. You will sleep on it. When Detritus say jump, you say, 'What color?' We going to do this by the numbers, and I got lots of numbers."
I never done nothing. You, Coalface, you smarten up. You got a field marshal's button in your knapsack. Never took nothing neither. You get down now and give me 32. No, make it 64.
Sergeant Colin pinched the bridge of his nose. We're alive, he thought. A troll insulted a dwarf in front of a lot of other dwarfs. Coalface. I mean, Coalface. I mean, Detritus is Mr. Clean by comparison. Is free, and now he's a guard. Carrot laid out mayonnaise. Carrots said we'll sort it all out by tomorrow, and it's dark already. But we're alive. Corporal Carrot is a crazy man. Hark at them dogs. Everyone's on edge in this heat. Angua listened to the other dogs howling and thought about wolves. She'd run with the pack a few times and knew about wolves. These dogs weren't wolves. Wolves were peaceful creatures, on the whole, and fairly simple. Come to think of it, the leader of the pack had been rather like Carrot. Carrot fitted into the city the same way he'd fitted into the high forests. Dogs were brighter than wolves. Wolves didn't need intelligence. They had other things. But dogs, they'd been given intelligence by humans, whether they wanted it or not. They were certainly more vicious than wolves. They'd got that from humans, too. Big Fido was forging his band of strays into what the ignorant thought a wolf pack was, a kind of furry killing machine. She looked around. Big dogs, little dogs, fat dogs, skinny dogs. They were all watching, bright-eyed, as the poodle talked. About destiny. About discipline. About the natural superiority of the canine race. About wolves. Only Big Fido's vision of wolves weren't wolves as Angua knew them. They were bigger, fiercer, wiser, the wolves of Big Fido's dream. They were kings of the forest, terrors of the night. They had names like Quickfang and Silverback. They were what every dog should aspire to. Big Fido had approved of Angua. She looked very much like a wolf, he said. They all listened, totally entranced, to a small dog who farted nervously while he talked, and told them that the natural shape for a dog was a whole lot bigger. Angua would have laughed, were it not for the fact that she doubted very much if she'd get out of there alive. And then she watched what happened to a small rat-like mongrel who was dragged into the center of the circle by a couple of terriers and accused of fetching a stick. Not even wolves did that to other wolves. There was no code of wolf behavior. There didn't need to be. Wolves didn't need rules about being wolves. That sounds about right to both Farmouse and the Sharkies. When the execution was over, she found Gaspode sitting in a corner and trying to be unobtrusive. "Will they chase us if we sneak off now?" she said.
"Don't think so. Meeting's over, see?"
"Come on, then." They sauntered into an alley, and, when they were sure they hadn't been noticed, ran like hell. "Good grief," said Angua when they had put several streets between them and the crowd of dogs. "He's mad, isn't he?"
"No, mad's when you froth at the mouth," said
Gaspode.
"He's insane. That's when you froth at the brain."
"All that stuff about wolves."
"I suppose a dog's got a right to dream,"
said Gaspode. "But wolves aren't like that. They don't even have names."
"Everyone's got a name."
"Wolves haven't. Why should they? They know who they are, and they know who the rest of the pack are. It's all an image. Smell and feel and shape. Wolves don't even have a word for wolves. It's not like that. Names are human things."
"Dogs have got names. I've got a name. Gaspode is my name,"
said Gaspode a shade sullenly. "Well, I can't explain why," said Angua, "but wolves don't have names." The moon was high now, in a sky as black as a cup of coffee that wasn't very black at all. Its light turned the city into a network of silver lines and shadows. Once upon a time, the Tower of Art had been the center of the city. But cities tend to migrate gently with time, and Ankh-Morpork's center was now several hundred yards away. The tower still dominated the city, though. Its black shape reared against the evening sky, contriving to look blacker than mere shadows would suggest. Hardly anyone ever looked at the Tower of Art, because it was always there. It was just a thing. People hardly ever look at familiar things. There was a very, very faint clink of metal on stone. For a moment, anyone close to the tower, and looking in exactly the right place, might have fancied that a patch of even blacker darkness was slowly but inexorably moving towards the top. For a moment, the moonlight caught a slim metal tube slung across the figure's back. Then it swung into shadow again as it climbed onwards. The window was resolutely shut. "But she always leaves it open," Angua whined.
"Must have shut it tonight,"
said Gaspode.
"There's a lot of strange people about."
"But she knows about strange people," said Angua. "Most of them live in her house."
"You'll just have to change back to human and smash the window."
"I can't do that. I'd be naked."
"Well, you're naked now, ain't you?"
"But I'm a wolf. That's different."
"I've never worn anything in my whole life. It's never bothered me."
"The watch-house," muttered Angua. "There'll be something at the watch-house. Spare chainmail, at least. A sheet or something. And the door doesn't shut properly. Come on." She trotted off along the street, with Gaspode whimpering along behind her. Someone was singing.
"Blimey," said
Gaspode.
"Look at that."
4 watchmen slogged past. 2 dwarfs, 2 trolls. Angua recognized Detritus.
"Hut, hut, hut. You, without doubt, the horriblest recruits I ever see. Pick up them feet. I never done nothing. Now you doing something for the first time in your horrible life, Lance Constable Coalface. It a man life in the watch.
The squad rounded the corner. What's been going on? Said Angua.
Search me. I might know more if one of 'em stops for a whittle.
There was a small crowd around the watch house in Pseudopolis Yard. They seemed to be watchmen, too. Sergeant Colin was standing under a flickering lamp, scribbling on his clipboard and talking to a small man with a large mustache. Sharkies are taking a shining to the trolls.
And your name, mister? Silas Cumberbatch!
Cumberbatch. Spelled exactly the same way. Is it actually a name?
Didn't you used to be town crier? That's right!
Silas's text is in all capitals.
Right, give him his shilling. Acting Constable Cuddy, one for your squad. Who's Acting Constable Cuddy?
Said Cumberbatch.
Down here, mister.
The man looked down.
But you're a dwarf. I never.
Stand to attention when you're talking to a superior officer,
Cuddy bellowed. Sorry. Superior officer. Superior officer. I think that's the right number of syllables. Cuddy bellowed.
Ain't no dwarfs or trolls or humans in the watch, see?
Said Colin.
Just watchmen, see? That's what Corporal Carrot says. Of course, if you'd like to be in Acting Constable Detritus's squad, I like dwarfs,
said Cumberbatch hurriedly.
Always have. Not that there are any in the watch, mind,
he added after barely a second's thought. Fair.
You learn quick. You'll go a long way in this man's army,
said Cuddy.
You could have a field marshal's bottom in your napkin any day now. What? Hut.
You could have a field marshal's bottom in your napkin any day now. And then there's just some letters after that. Abwatn. And the TN is in like extra small font. That's I don't know what's going on with Cuddy here.
Fifth volunteer so far,
said Colin to Corporal Nobbs. Oh, you think that's what that is? As Cuddy and his new recruit pounded off into the darkness.
Even the dean at the university tried to join. Amazing.
Well, Detritus had recently said there was something about, like, having a field marshal's, like, I'm assuming instead of bottom, it might be either, I think it's baton. I think it's field marshal's baton, it was what was previously said, in your, like, probably knapsack. Field marshal's baton in your knapsack probably got turned into field marshal's bottom in your napkin. That's my guess. Because I think there was previously something similar said. So,
Even the dean at the university tried to join. Amazing.
Angua looked at Gaspode, who shrugged. That would be interesting to see.
Detritus is certainly clubbing 'em into line,
Said Colin.
After 10 minutes, they're putty in his hands. Mind you,
He added.
after 10 minutes, anything's putty in them hands. Reminds me of the drill sergeant we had when I was first in the army.
Tough, was he?
Said Nobby, lighting a cigarette.
Tough! Tough! Blimey! 13 weeks of pure misery, that was. 10-mile run every morning, up to our necks in muck half the time, and him yelling a blue streak and cussing us every living moment. One time, he made me stay up all night cleaning the lavies with a toothbrush. He'd hit us with a spiky stick to get us out of bed. We had to jump through hoops for that man. We hated his damn guts. We'd have stuck one on him if any of us had the nerve, but, of course, none of us did. He put us through 3 months of living death. But, you know, after the passing out parade, us looking at ourselves in our new uniforms and all, real soldiers at last, seeing what we'd become. Well, we saw him in the bar and, well, I don't mind telling you.
The dogs watched Colin wipe away the suspicion of a tear.
Me and Tonker Jackson and Hoggy Spuds waited for him in the alley and beat 7 kinds of hell out of him. It took 3 days for my knuckles to heal.
Colin blew his nose.
Happy days. Fancy a boiled sweet, Nobby?
Don't mind if I do, Fred.
Give one to the little dog,
Said Gaspode. Colin did, and then wondered why. That story sure took a turn. Did it? I think that story, you were expecting it to take a turn, and it didn't. It just went straight on through to exactly the predetermined destination. I think if they'd went and bought him a drink, that would have been it taking a turn. An expected turn, sure, but I feel like this was a pretty straight line. Oh yeah, that's what I would assume that would mean. If you had a field marshal's baton in your knapsack, I would assume that means that you are therefore a field marshal, meaning that if you had that in your future, then you could be cut out to be an officer. But it being a Napoleon thing establishes kind of where the baton and knapsack part of that came from, I suppose. Makes slightly more sense than having a field marshal's bottom in your napkin. In that doesn't make any sense at all, I hope. All right. Not yet. So, Colin did, and then wondered why.
See?
Said Gaspode, crunching it up in his dreadful teeth.
I'm brilliant. Brilliant.
You'd better pray Big Fido doesn't find out, said Angua.
Nah, he won't touch me. I worry him. I've got the power.
With a capital P. He scratched an ear vigorously.
Look, you don't have to go back in there. We could go and...
No,
Story of my life,
said Gaspode.
There's Gaspode. Give him a kick.
I thought you had this big happy family to go back to, said Angua as she pushed open the door.
Eh? Oh, yes, right.
said Gaspode hurriedly.
Yes, but I like my sort of independence. I could stroll back home like a shot any time I wanted.
Angua bounded up the stairs and clawed open the nearest door. It was Carrot's bedroom. Of course it was. The smell of him, a kind of golden pink color, filled it from edge to edge. There was a drawing of a dwarf mine carefully pinned to one wall. Another held a large sheet of cheap paper on which had been drawn, in careful pencil line, with many crossings out and smudges, a map of the city. We've got one of those hanging on our wall. In front of the window, where a conscientious person would put it to take as much advantage as possible of the available light so as not to have to waste too many of the city's candles, was a small table. There was some paper on it, and a jar of pencils. There was an old chair, too. A piece of paper had been folded up and wedged under a wobbly leg. And that, apart from a clothes chest, was it. It reminded her of Vimes's room. This was a place where someone came to sleep, not to live. Angua wondered if there was ever a time when anyone in the watch was ever really off duty. She couldn't imagine Sergeant Colin in civilian clothes. When you were a watchman all the time, which was a bit of a bargain for the city, since it only paid you to be a watchman for 10 hours of every day. "All right," she said. "I can use a sheet off the bed. You shut your eyes."
"Why?"
said Gaspode. "For decency's sake." Gaspode looked blank. Then he said,
"Oh, I get it. Yes, I can see your point, definitely. Dear me, you can't have me looking at a naked woman. Oh, no. Ogling. Getting ideas. Dearie me.
"You know what I mean."
Can't say I do. Can't say I do. Clothing has never been what you might call a thingy of dog what's name."
A thingy of dog what's name. Gaspode scratched his ear.
"Two metasyntactic variables there. Sorry."
I pointed it out. He apologized for it. Two metasyntactic variables there. Sorry. "It's different with you. You know what I am. Anyway, dogs are naturally naked."
"So are humans."
Angua changed. Gaspode's ear flattened against his head. Despite himself, he whimpered. Angua stretched. "You know the worst bit," she said. "It's my hair. You can hardly get the tangles out. And my feet are covered in mud." She tugged a sheet off the bed and draped it around herself as a makeshift toga. "There," she said. "You see worse on the street every day. Gaspode?"
"What?"
"You can open your eyes now." Gaspode blinked. Angua, in both shapes, was okay to look at. But the second or two in between, as the morphic signal hunted between stations, was not a sight you wish to see on a full stomach. Like Animorphs book covers. You cover up either end and just look for the, mid-transformation, There's a screenshot for you. Yeah.
"I thought you rolled around on the floor, grunting and growing hair and stretching,"
he whimpered. Angua peered at her hair in the mirror while her night vision lasted. Whatever for?
Does all that stuff hurt?
It's a bit like a whole-body sneeze. You'd think he'd have a comb, wouldn't you? I mean, a comb? Everyone's got a comb.
A really big sneeze?
Even a clothes brush would be something. They froze as the door creaked open. Carrot walked in. He didn't notice them in the gloom, but trudged to the table. There was a flare and a reek of sulphur as he lit first a match and then a candle. He removed his helmet and then sagged as if he'd finally allowed a weight to drop on his shoulders. They heard him say, "It can't be right." "What can't?" said Angua. Carrot spun around. "What are you doing here?"
Your uniform got stolen while you were spying in the Assassin's Guild,
Gaspode prompted. "My uniform got stolen," said Angua, "while I was in the Assassin's Guild. Spying." Carrot was still staring at her. "There was some old bloke who kept muttering all the time," she went on desperately.
Bugrit? Millennium Hand and Shrimp?
"Yes, that's right."
Foul old Ron, Carrot sighed. Probably sold it for a drink. I know where he lives, though. Remind me to go and have a word with him when I've got time. You don't want to ask her what she was wearing when she was in the guild,
said Gaspode, who had crept under the bed.
Shut up,
said Angua.
What?
said Carrot. I found out about the room, said Angua quickly. Someone called...
Edward de Eath,
said Carrot, sitting down on the bed. The ancient springs went groing, grink. How did you know that?
I think de Eath stole the gone. I think he killed Beano. But assassins killing without being paid? It's worse than dwarfs and tools. It's worse than clowns and faces. I hear Cruces is really upset. He's got assassins looking for the boy all over the city.
Oh, well, I'd hate to be in Edward's shoes when they find him.
I'd hate to be in his shoes now. And I know where they are, you see. They're on his poor feet. And they're dead.
The assassins have found him, then?
No, someone else did. And then Cuddy and Detritus did. If I'm any judge, he's been dead for several days. You see? That can't be right. But I rubbed the Beano makeup off and took off the red nose, and it was definitely him. And the wig's the right kind of red hair. He must have gone straight to Hammerhawk.
But someone shot at Detritus and killed the beggar girl.
Yes.
Angua sat down beside him. And it couldn't have been Edward.
Ha!
Carrot undid his breastplate and pulled off his mail shirt. They're both sitting on his bed, and Angua's wearing his sheet. So, we're looking for someone else. A third man.
But there's no clues. There's just some man with a gun, somewhere in the city, anywhere. And I'm tired.
The springs went glink again, as Carrot stood up and staggered over to the chair and table. He sat down, pulled a piece of paper towards him, inspected a pencil, sharpened it on his sword, and, after a moment's thought, began to write. Angua watched him in silence. Carrot had a short-sleeved leather vest under his mail. There was a birthmark at the top of his left arm. It was crown-shaped. "Are you writing it all down, like Captain Vimes did?" she said, after a while. "No." "What are you doing, then?"
"I'm writing to my mum and dad."
"Really?"
"I always write to my mum and dad. I promised them. Anyway, it helps me think. I always write letters home when I'm thinking. My dad sends me lots of good advice, too."
There was a wooden box in front of Carrot. Letters were stacked in it. Carrot's father had been in the habit of replying to Carrot on the back of Carrot's own letters, because paper was hard to come by at the bottom of a dwarf mine. "What kind of good advice?"
"About mining, usually. Moving rocks. You know, propping and shoring. You can't get things wrong in a mine. You have to do things right."
His pencil scritched on the paper. The door was still ajar. That's funny, I thought it was a door. But there was a tentative tap on it, which said, in a kind of metaphorical Morse code, that the tapper could see very well that Carrot was in his room with a scantily clad woman and was trying to knock without actually being heard. Sergeant Colin coughed. The cough had a leer in it.
"Yes, Sergeant?"
said Carrot, without looking around.
"What do you want me to do next, sir?" "Send them out in squads, Sergeant. At least one human, one dwarf, and one troll in each." "Yes, sir. What'll they be doing, sir?" "They'll be being visible, Sergeant." "Right, sir. Sir, one of the volunteers just now. It's Mr. Blakely, sir. From Elm Street. He's a vampire. Well, technically. But he works up at the slaughterhouse, so it's not really." "Thank him very much and send him home, Sergeant." Colin glanced at Angua. "Yes, sir. Right," he said reluctantly. "But he's not a problem. It's just that he needs these extra homo-goblins in his blood." "No!" Carrot. "Right. Fine. I'll tell him to go away, then." Colin shut the door. The hinge leered. "They call you sir," said Angua. "Do you notice that?" "I know. It's not right. People ought to think for themselves, Captain Vimes says. The problem is, people only think for themselves if you tell them to. How do you spell eventuality?" "I don't." "Okay." Carrot still didn't look around. "We'll hold the city together through the rest of the night, I think. Everyone's seen sense." "No, they haven't," said Angua in the privacy of her own head. "They've seen you. It's like hypnotism. People live your vision. You dream, just like Big Fido, only he dreamed a nightmare, and you dream for everyone. You really think everyone is basically nice. Just for a moment, while they're near you, everyone else believes it too." From somewhere outside came the sound of marching knuckles. Detritus's troop was making another circuit. Oh well, he's got to know sooner or later. "Carrot?" "Hmm?" "You know, when Cuddy and the troll and me joined the watch, well, you know why it was us three, don't you?" "Of course. Minority group representation. One troll, one dwarf, one woman." He said it out loud. "Ah." Angua hesitated. It was still moonlight outside. She could tell him, run downstairs, change, and be well outside the city by dawn.
She'd have to do it. She was an expert at running away from cities. It wasn't exactly like that, she said. You see, there's a lot of undead in the city, and the patrician insisted that...
Give her a kiss,
said Gaspode from under the bed. Interesting here that, I guess, they are classifying werewolf as a form of undead. You frequently see werewolf in association with undead, right? Like it's werewolves versus vampires and things like that, right? But I've never actually thought of werewolves as undead. Angua froze. Carrot's face took on the usual, vaguely puzzled look of someone whose ears have just heard what their brain is programmed to believe doesn't exist. He began to blush. Gaspode! Snapped Angua, dropping into canine.
I know what I'm doing. A man, a woman. It is fate,
said Gaspode. Wow. Nice. That's hilarious. Angua stood up. Carrot shot up too, so fast that his chair fell over. I must be going, she said. Don't go.
Now you just reach out,
said Gaspode. It'd never work, Angua told herself. It never does. Werewolves have to hang around with other werewolves. They're the only ones who understand. But, on the other hand, since she'd just have to run anyway... She held up a finger. Just one moment, she said brightly, and, in one movement, reached under the bed and pulled out Gaspode by the scruff of his neck.
You need me,
the dog whimpered as he was carried to the door.
I mean, what does he know? His idea of a good time is showing you the Colossus of Morpork. Put me.
The door slammed. Angua leaned on it. It'll end up just like it did in Pseudopolis and Quirm and... Angua, said Carrot. She turned. Don't say anything, she said, and it might be all right. After a while, the bed springs went glink. And shortly after that, for Corporal Carrot, the Discworld moved, and didn't even bother to stop to cancel the bread and newspapers. So if I'm not mistaken, I think this is the first time in any of the books we've read on this stream that somebody has gotten laid. We haven't really read those kinds of books, and I wouldn't consider this those kinds of books either, but... Gaspode's tried, yeah, that's true. Not that the topic hasn't come up in any of the books we've read, but I don't think the actual act has happened. Because let's see. So we started with The Hobbit, obviously, not there. And we read Pawn of Prophecy, nothing there. Guards, no. Queen of Sorcery, no. Weird Sisters, no. Magician's Gambit, no. I think this is that all the books? It might have been possible. Like I said, it's the idea has been mentioned, right? There have been characters with children, etc. That's true. Yeah. With seamstresses. Well, Corporal Carrot awoke around 4 a.m., that secret hour known only to the night people, such as criminals, policemen, and other misfits. I guess I fall under misfits personally. I'm pretty familiar with 4 a.m. He lay on his half of the narrow bed and stared at the wall. It had definitely been an interesting night. Although he was indeed simple, he wasn't stupid, and he'd always been aware of what might be called the mechanics. He'd been acquainted with several young ladies, and had taken them on many invigorating walks to see fascinating ironwork and interesting civic buildings, until they'd unaccountably lost interest. He'd patrolled the whore pits often enough. That's capital letters as a proper noun. Although Mrs. Palm and the Guild of Seamstresses were trying to persuade the patrician to rename the area the Street of Negotiable Affection. But he'd never seen them in relation to himself, had never been quite sure, as it were, where he fitted in. This was probably not something he was going to write to his parents about. They almost certainly knew. He slid out of bed. The room was stifling hot with the curtains drawn. Behind him, he heard Angua roll over into the hollow left by his body. Then, with both hands, and considerable vigor, he threw open the curtains and let in the round white light of the full moon. Behind him, he thought he heard Angua sigh in her sleep. There were thunderstorms out on the plain. Carrot could see lightning flashes stitching the horizon, and he could smell rain. But the air of the city was still and baking, all the hotter for the distant prospect of storms. The university's Tower of Art loomed in front of him. He saw it every day. It dominated half the city. Behind him, the bed went glink. "I think there's going to be," he began, and turned. As he turned away, he missed the glint of moonlight on metal from the top of the tower. Sergeant Colin sat on the bench outside the baking air of the watchhouse. There was a hammering noise from somewhere inside. Cuddy had come in 10 minutes before with a bag of tools, a couple of helmets, and a determined expression. Colin was damned if he knew what the little devil was working on. He counted again, very slowly, ticking off names on his clipboard. No doubt about it. The Night Watch had almost 20 members now. Maybe more. Detritus had gone critical, and had sworn in a further 2 men, another troll, and a wooden dummy from outside Cork Sock's Natty Clothing Company. Footnote. And this was the origin, long after the events chronicled here were over, of an Ankh-Morpork folk song scored for tin whistle and nasal passage. As I was a-walking along Lower Broadway, the recruiting party came picking up people by their ankles and saying they were going to volunteer to join the watch unless they wanted their go-hoo-lug heads kicked in. So I went via Peach Pie Street and Hollow Ferns instead, singing Toorali, etc. It never really caught on. End of footnote. If this went... I almost made it. I can make it through some of these jokes as long as I don't stop. And then as soon as they stop, that's when they catch up with me. If this went on, they'd be able to open up the old watch houses near the main gates, just like the old days. He couldn't remember when the watch last had 20 men. It had all seemed a good idea at the time. It was certainly keeping the lid on things. But in the morning, the patrician was going to get to hear about it and demand to see the superior officer. Now, Sergeant Colin was not entirely clear in his own mind who was the superior officer at the moment. He felt that it should be either Captain Vimes or, in some way he couldn't quite define, Corporal Carrot. But the captain wasn't around, and Corporal Carrot was only a corporal. And Fred Colin had a dreadful apprehension that when Lord Vetinari summoned someone in order to be ironical at them and say things like, "Who's going to pay their wages, pray?" it would be him, Fred Colin, well and truly up the unk without a paddle. They were also running out of ranks. There were only 4 ranks below the rank of sergeant. Nobby was getting stroppy about anyone else being promoted to corporal, so there was a certain amount of career congestion taking place. Besides, some of the watch had got it into their heads that the way you got promoted was to conscript half a dozen other guards. Joining the watch as a multi-level marketing scheme? At Detritus's current rate of progression, he was going to be High Supreme Major General by the end of the month. And what made it all strange was that Carrot was still only a... Colin looked up when he heard the tinkle of broken glass. Something golden and indistinct crashed through an upper window, landed in the shadows, and fled before he could make out what it was. The watchhouse door slammed open, and Carrot emerged, sword in hand.
Where'd it go? Where'd it go? Dunno. What the hell was it?
Carrot stopped.
Not sure,
He said.
Carrot? Sarge? I should put some clothes on if I was you, lad.
What? What's going on? Carrot stayed looking into the pre-dawn gloom.
I mean, I turned around, and there it was, and...
What? Look at this look he's given me over his shoulder over here. Am I going on too long? Is my presence required in the other room? Oh, itch. You getting antsy?
I turned around, and there it was, and...
He looked down at the sword in his hand, as if he hadn't realized that he was carrying it.
Oh, damn,
he said. He ran back to his room and grabbed his breeches. As he struggled into them, he was suddenly aware of a thought in his head, clear as ice.
You are a pillock, what are you? Picked up the sword automatically, didn't you? Did it all wrong. Now she's run off and you'll never see her again.
He turned. A small gray dog was watching him intently from the doorway.
Shock like that, she might
She might never change back again, said his thoughts. Who cares if she's a werewolf? Actually, I think I need to rewind this. These are Carrot's thoughts, but I'm going to rewind. As he struggled into them, he was suddenly aware of a thought in his head, clear as ice. I've gone back like a paragraph.
You are a pillock, what are you? Picked up the sword automatically, didn't you? Did it all wrong. Now she's run off and you'll never see her again.
He turned. A small gray dog was watching him intently from the doorway. Sounds familiar.
Shock like that, she might never change back again,
said his thoughts.
Who cares if she's a werewolf? That didn't bother you until you knew. Incidentally, any biscuits about your person could be usefully thrown to the small dog in the doorway. Although, come to think of it, the chances of you having a biscuit on you right now are very small, so forget you ever thought it. Blimey, you really messed that up, right?
Thought Carrot.
Woof, woof,
said the dog. Carrot's forehead wrinkled. It's you, isn't it? He said, pointing his sword.
Me? Dogs don't talk,
said Gaspode hurriedly.
Listen, I should know. I am one.
You tell me where she's gone. Right now. Or...
Yeah, look,
said Gaspode gloomily.
The first thing I remember in my life, right? The first thing was being thrown into the river in a sack. With a brick. Me. I mean, I had wobbly legs and a humorously inside-out ear. I mean, I was fluffy.
Ben does not approve of this narrative.
Okay, right. So it was the Yank. Okay, so I could walk ashore. But that was the start. And it ain't never got much better. I mean, I walked ashore inside the sack, dragging the brick. Took me 3 days to chew my way out. Go on, threaten me.
Please, said Carrot. Gaspode scratched his ear.
Maybe I could track her down,
said Gaspode.
Given the right, encouragement.
He waggled his eyebrows encouragingly. If you find her, I'll give you anything you want, said Carrot.
Oh, well, if. Right. Oh, yes. That's all very well, is if. What about something up front? Look at these paws, hey? Wear and tear. And this nose doesn't smell by itself. It is a finely tuned instrument.
If you don't start looking right away, said Carrot, I will personally... He hesitated. He'd never been cruel to an animal in his life. I'll turn the matter over to Corporal Nobbs, he said.
That's what I like,
said Gaspode bitterly.
Incentive.
He pressed his blotchy nose to the ground. It was all show, anyway. Angua's scent hung in the air like a rainbow. You can really talk, said Carrot. Gaspode rolled his eyes.
Course not,
he said. The figure had reached the top of the tower. I've been wanting, I keep going, but it is 8:30. How's everyone feeling? We have a scene break here and a scene break on the next page. Okay. The figure had reached the top of the tower. Lamps and candles were alight all over the city. It was spread out below him. 10,000 little earthbound stars. and he could turn off any one he wanted, just like that. It was like being a god. It was amazing how sounds were so audible up here. It was like being a god. He could hear the howl of dogs, the sound of voices. Occasionally one would be louder than the rest, rising up into the night sky. This was power. The power he had below, the power to say, do this, do that, that was just something human. But this was like being a god. He pulled the gun into position, clicked a rack of 6 bullets into position, and sighted at random on a light, and then on another one, and another one. He really shouldn't have let it shoot that beggar girl. That wasn't the plan. Guild leaders. That was poor little Edward's plan. Guild leaders to start with. Leave the city leaderless and in turmoil, and then confront his silly candidate and say, "Go forth and rule, it is your destiny." That was an old disease, that kind of thinking. You caught it from crowns and silly stories. You believed, you believed that some trick like pulling a sword from a stone was somehow a qualification for kingly office. A sword from a stone? The gun was more magical than that. He lay down, stroked the gun, and waited. Day broke.
"I never touched nothing,"
said Coalface, and turned over on his slab. Detritus hit him over the head with his club.
"Up you get, soldiers! Hand off rock, and on with sock! It another beautiful day in a watch! Lance Constable Coalface, on your feet, you horrible little man!"
20 minutes later, a bleary-eyed Sergeant Colin surveyed the troops. They were slumped on the benches, except for Acting Constable Detritus, who was sitting bolt upright with an air of official helpfulness.
"Right, men,"
Colin began.
"Now, as you men, you listen up good right now,"
Detritus boomed.
"Thank you, Acting Constable Detritus,"
said Colin wearily.
"Captain Vimes is getting married today. We're going to provide a guard of honor. That's what we always used to do in the old days when a watchman got wed. So, I want helmets and breastplates bright and shiny, and cohorts gleaming. Not a speck of muck. Where's Corporal Nobbs?"
There was a dink as Acting Constable Detritus's hand bounced off his new helmet.
"Hasn't been seen for 4 hours, sir,"
he reported. I feel like I kind of blurred Colin and Detritus's voices together there a little bit. Colin rolled his eyes.
"And some of you will. Where's Lance Constable Angua?"
Dink.
"No one's seen her since last night, sir." "All right. We got through the night. We're going to get through the day. Corporal Carrot says we're to look sharp."
Dink.
"Yes, sir."
Acting
Constable Detritus?" "Sir." "What's that you've got on your head?"
Dink.
"Acting Constable Cuddy made it for me, sir. Special clockwork thinking helmet."
Cuddy coughed.
These big bits are cooling fins, see? Painted black. I glommed a clockwork engine off my cousin, and this fan here blows air over."
He stopped when he saw Colin's expression.
"That's what you've been working on all night, is it?"
"Yes, because I reckon troll brains get to."
The sergeant waved him into silence.
"So, We've got a clockwork soldier halfway,
said Colin.
We're a real model army, we are.
That's cute, though. Cuddy making a special helmet for Detritus. That's very sweet. Gaspode was geographically embarrassed. He knew where he was, more or less. He was somewhere beyond the shades, in the network of dock basins and cattle yards. Even though he thought of the whole city as belonging to him, this wasn't his territory. There were rats here almost as big as he was, and he was basically a sort of terrier shape, and Ankh-Morpork rats were intelligent enough to recognize it. He'd also been kicked by 2 horses and almost run over by a cart. And he'd lost the scent. She'd doubled back and forth and used rooftops and crossed the river a few times. Werewolves were instinctively good at avoiding pursuit. After all, the surviving ones were descendants of those who could outrun an angry mob. Those who couldn't outwit a mob never had descendants, or even graves. That's interesting. So we are talking about lineages of werewolves. Presumably through birth. I suppose you might count it as through bite, but I'm guessing the way this is talking, we're talking about family trees. Genetically werewolves, yeah, something like that. Which makes it even weirder to think of them as undead. Those who couldn't outwit a mob never had descendants, or even graves. Several times the scent petered out at a wall or a low-roofed hut, and Gaspode would limp around in circles until he found it again. Random thoughts wavered in his schizophrenic, doggy mind.
Clever dog saves the day,
He muttered.
Everyone says, good doggy. No, they don't. I'm only doing it 'cause I was threatened. The marvelous nose. I didn't want to do this. You shall have a bone. I'll just flots him on the sea of life, me. Who's a good boy? Shut up.
The sun toiled up the sky. Down below, Gaspode toiled on. Willikins opened the curtains. Sunlight poured in. Vimes groaned and sat up slowly in what remained of his bed.
Good grief, man,
He mumbled.
What sort of time d'ye call this? Almost 9 in the morning, sir,
Said the butler.
9 in the morning? What sort of time is that to get up? I don't normally get up until the afternoon's got the shine worn off. But sir is not at work any more, sir.
Vimes looked down at the tangle of sheets and blankets. They were wrapped around his legs and knotted together. Then he remembered the dream. He'd been walking around the city. Well, maybe not so much a dream as a memory. After all, he walked the city every night. Some part of him wasn't giving up. Some part of Vimes was learning to be a civilian, but an old part was proceeding to a different beat. He'd thought the place seemed deserted and harder to walk through than usual.
Does sir wish me to shave him, or will sir do it himself? I get nervous if people hold blades near my face,
said Vimes.
But if you harness the horse and cart, I'll try and get to the other end of the bathroom. Very amusing, sir.
Vimes had another bath, just for the novelty of it. He was aware from a general background noise that the mansion was busily humming towards W hour. Lady Sybil was devoting to her wedding all the directness of thought she'd normally apply to breeding out a tendency towards floppy ears in swamp dragons. Half a dozen cooks had been busy in the kitchens for 3 days. They were roasting a whole ox and doing amazing stuff with rare fruit. Hitherto, Sam Vimes's idea of a good meal was liver without tubes. Haute cuisine had been bits of cheese on sticks stuck into half a grapefruit. He was vaguely aware that prospective grooms were not supposed to see putative brides on the morning of the wedding, possibly in case they took to their heels. That was unfortunate. He'd have liked to have talked to someone. If he could talk to someone. No, it's Putation. No ends in sight. If he could talk to someone, it might all make sense. He picked up the razor and looked in the mirror at the face of Captain Samuel Vimes. Colin saluted, and then peered at Carrot.
You all right, sir? You look like you could do with some sleep.
10 o'clock, or various attempts thereof, began to boom around the city. Carrot turned away from the window. "I've been out looking," he said. Generally considered or reputed to be. Pronounced as I said. So, prospective grooms were not supposed to see generally considered or reputed to be brides on the morning of the wedding, possibly in case they took to their heels.
3 more recruits this morning already,
said Colin. They'd asked to join Mr. Carrot's army. He was slightly worried about that.
Good. Detritus has given 'em very basic training,
said Colin.
It works, too. After an hour of him shouting in their ear, they do anything I tell 'em.
I want all the men we can spare up on the rooftops between the palace and the university, said Carrot.
There's assassins up there already,
said Colin.
And the Thieves' Guild have got men up there too.
They're thieves and assassins. We're not. Make sure someone's up on the Tower of Art as well.
Sir?
Yes, Sergeant?
We've been talking, me and the lads. And, well...
Yes?
It'd save a lot of trouble if we went to the wizards and asked them.
Captain Vimes never had any truck with magic.
No, but...
No magic, Sergeant.
Yes, sir.
Guard of honor all sorted out?
Yes, sir. Their cohorts all gleaming in purple and gold, sir.
Really?
Very important, sir. Good, clean cohorts. Frighten the life out of the enemy.
Good.
But I can't find Corporal Nobbs, sir.
Is that a problem?
Well, it means the honor guard'll be a bit smarter, sir.
I've sent him on a special errand.
Can't find Lance Constable Angua, either.
Sergeant? Colin braced himself. Outside, the bells were dying away. Did you know she was a werewolf?
Captain Vimes kind of hinted, sir.
How did he hint? Colin took a step back.
He sort of said, Fred, she's a damn werewolf. I don't like it any more than you do, but veterinary says we've got to take one of them as well, and a werewolf's better than a vampire or a zombie, and that's all there is to it. That's what he hinted.
I see.
Sorry about that, sir.
Let's just get through the day, Fred. That's all. A bing, a bing, a bing bong. We never even presented the captain with his watch, said Carrot, taking it out of his pocket. He must have gone off thinking we didn't care. He was probably looking forward to getting a watch. I know it always used to be a tradition.
It's been a busy few days, sir. Anyway, we can give it to him after the wedding.
Carrot slipped the watch back into its bag. I suppose so. Well, let's get organized, Sergeant.
8:45. Shall we continue? That's true. That's a fair amount, and we're not going to finish the book tonight. We got from page, what did I say, like 295-ish? Yeah, we read all of 294 through page 322. So that's a pretty good amount. I am thinking we're going to finish this book next week. I don't know if it'll be Wednesday or Friday, but we don't have that much left to go. Only what, like 60 pages? So probably Friday. You didn't expect that some of the watch knew she was a werewolf? So, there was actually a hint about that very early on. Not a good hint. Not a hint that you would pick up on if you didn't already know. But there was a hint that at least Vimes knew. I don't remember if that hint gets pointed out later, though, so I'm not going to go back to it just yet. Maybe once we finish the book, if the book doesn't point it out itself. Oh, all right. Well, there goes Farmhouse about it. It's fine. Well, this was fun. We're definitely getting to the parts of the book where I'm like, I want to keep reading. Yeah, basically what Carrot thought. You know, one dwarf, one troll, one woman. But they never finished that sentence. They'd be like, one dwarf, one troll, one W, and then get cut off by something. Yeah. So I'm gonna start a I'm gonna start a raid over to Slightly Stupid Bear. He's playing Amnesia as part of Spooky October. Spooktober. And also, maybe Angua will help Carrot to get over his kind of speciesism towards undead. It was a shame to see him send back that vampire. So I hope everyone has a lovely weekend and a great Halloween on Monday. Happy Halloween! And I'm looking forward to seeing pictures of your costumes. Alright. Have a great night. Have a great weekend. Happy Halloween! Go say Happy Halloween to Bear, too. Okay. Bye.